All right, let's try this again. It seemed like as soon as it started, everything kind of shut down. So I was just apologizing for having the internet issues on Friday. So I'm hoping that we can get through this. Things seem to be kind of working now. I'm not really sure what that issue was. So yeah, sorry about that. That's the issue with trying to go live, and sometimes you can't depend on your internet. So looks like things are holding steady now. So hopefully we'll be able to to get through this. So I was just saying that yeah, on Friday I couldn't get through a live stream, so I recorded it, and then over the weekend I was just busy and didn't have a chance to record. I did make monsters on both Saturday and Sunday, so you could check those out on my social media feed. So kind of fingers crossed. Let's hope that the internet plays nice for me for the rest of this. So let's go ahead and try this again. So today's day number 19 of my Monster a Day challenge. So 19. This is the 19th day that I've sat down for about an hour to make monsters. So if you've been following along, awesome. And as always, if you want to pop into the comments and say hi, I always appreciate seeing who is out there. So today is going to be a little bit different. So I've been doing nothing but 2D work. So I started off the month with drawing, and then did a little bit of painting, and then been focusing a lot on collage. I've really been enjoying the collage. I really love cut paper. So I'm going to actually go into 3D artwork today, but using the cut paper. I discovered paper sculpture almost 30 years ago. I was maybe 25 years ago. I was in college, and I was doing a field experience for my art to become an art teacher. And my cooperating teacher was like, "I want you to do a lesson, a unit on paper sculpture." Well, I'd never done paper sculpture, so she had me check out some books from the library, and I've basically been doing paper sculpture ever since. So I did it in college during those, my student teaching, and then every year I would teach it, no matter what grade level I was teaching, whether it was the little kids all the way up to high school. So this is paper sculpture. It's a little bit different. Now, the only issue with this is that it's 3D and it's paper, so it's not the most long-lasting art form. Paper sculpture tends to be, very fragile, and even though I'm using really high-quality art paper, these are things that probably aren't going to last the rest of my life. So anyway, but they're fun to make, and I've always loved teaching kids how to do it, but I think they're just as fun for adults. So so if you're willing, you can kind of follow along. I'm going to kind of go step by step, and then probably do a few different monsters over the next few days, kind of using some of the same techniques. But if you're just like, hey, I just want to draw monsters, remember, this is all about you. It's just about getting together and making some monsters. So let's go ahead and sorry, let's go ahead and dive in. And I want to talk about materials. So again, I'm doing paper sculpture. I see a few of you just joined in. So if you want to pop into the comments and say hi, that's always great to see where people are tuning in from. So I have my colored paper. So this is the same paper that I've been using. It's a brand called Daler Rowney Canford paper, but I just found out today that it's hard to find this paper, and I think what it is that Daler Rowney was bought out by another company, and they discontinued this paper, which I'm really sad, because I really like this paper. It's like a really heavy duty, nice quality construction paper, but it's more of a fine arts paper. So I've got that. I've got my pencil for mark making. I've got a ruler because I am going to want to draw some straight lines. And instead of glue stick, I'm just going to use my standard Elmer's glue all. Any glue will work. I just find the liquid glue is a little bit easier to do for sculpture, and it's a little bit stronger than glue stick. Glue stick is a little bit more difficult. So I want to get this into a three-dimensional form, and I'm going to do a rectangular prism as like the body of the monster. So I need to take this and get it into a rectangular prism. There's lots of ways to do it, and I'm always looking for quick and easy ways, especially whenever you're teaching kids. I usually roll it into a cylinder, but I found here recently what works even better sometimes is to fold the paper. And so I'm going to fold it, and I'm not going to fold it all the way over. So I'm just leaving a little gap. It doesn't really matter. There's no formula for it. I think maybe about there, because I'm going to fold this part so it overlaps this a little bit. And so I'm going to fold that, make a nice strong crease. If you have a bone folder or a wooden spoon or something, I have a little plastic spatula, and I can just rub it. That's just going to give me a nice crease. So now I want to take this and fold it over. The one thing though is I did not have this in the middle. So this is kind of off-center. It's closer to this side. So I'm going to fold this over, but don't fold it right here. Fold it here so it's going to overlap a little bit. So I'm going to fold this over just a little bit. And that's going to be my seam. That's where I'm going to put the glue. All right. Because the nice thing about a rectangular prism is that I can flatten it because the opposite sides are the same length. Okay. All right. So I've got it overlapped a little bit, and then I can go ahead and put my glue on. I think I'll go ahead and just put it right at the edge here. And I'm just going to do a nice line of glue. And then if you want to, you could spread it. Sometimes I'll even use a paintbrush for this. Alright, so I get it spread. Now I have glue all over my fingers, but just rubbing my fingers together gets rid of the glue. And then I can just fold that back over. And then I'm just going to rub it. Now with the liquid glue, it might take a little bit longer for it to really stick. So, 30 seconds to a minute, depending on how much glue. When I teach little kids, sometimes they'll hold it and they have so much glue on it that it just pops apart. And I'm like, you have so much glue, you need to hold it for like 5 minutes. Okay. So I have this flat rectangle. Okay, so how do I turn this into a prism? So if I hold it up and I kind of start to squeeze it open, you can see that I've got corners. So I basically want to make a corner here and a corner here. So the way I do that is I start to squeeze it, I start to squish it, but notice how the corners, I'm trying to hold it so you can see it, notice how the corners don't quite line up. Now, if I line up the corners and squish it, it's going to be a square prism, but I want it to be a rectangular prism. So I'm just going to hold it, and so that way here's a corner, there's a corner, and then when I squish it flat, so again, there's a corner, there's a little bit of space. And you can see it better once I get it squished flat. Let me flip it over so that you don't see the seam. So what happened is I squished it flat. Now I have the long side and I have a shorter side. Let me go ahead and use my spatula, my bone folder, to get that nice and smooth. Okay. And now when I pop it open, now I have my rectangular prism. So short side and longer side. Okay. Now this is a little bit too long, and I do that on purpose. So I forgot to say, like, anytime you do this, you just start with a rectangular piece of paper, and then you can fold it up. So you could do a rectangular prism, you could do a square prism using this technique. So, but that's going to be the body. And just like my monsters, when I draw them, the head and the body are all going to be kind of from the same piece. However, I want to make a mouth, and that's why I think this is too long. So if I cut off this bottom part, then I can actually use that to make the mouth. Okay, I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to cut off probably about the bottom third. Okay, so the way I'm going to do that is flip that over, so I'm working on the back. And then if I want to, I can draw a line, but then I might see a pencil mark, but let's go ahead and do that. So if I want to get really technical, I can sit there and I could measure, so I could see, like, okay, this is 7 3/4 of an inch. I could, measure a third, but I just like to eyeball it. So if you wanted to measure it, you can, but I'm just going to eyeball it. And as long as it's close. And then little line. And I drew that lightly, so I don't even know if you could see that. Maybe there you go. You can kind of see it. And then I'm going to cut this. Okay. And then I'm going to just use my eraser and erase any pencil marks, just so that I don't see them. All right. So if I pop this open, now this is the head, the body. The mouth is going to be down here. So how do I get that as the mouth? Well, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this back off, and then I'm going to have 3 sides. And so if I cut right down the corner on both sides, okay, so now this part can get glued on to the bottom of it like that, and so that becomes the mouth, and I can have a tongue and teeth and stuff. Okay, if I wanted to shape this, I could. So like a lot of times on my monsters, like on the collage ones, the mouth is shaped a little bit. So I could do that now if I wanted to. So I could take this and cut a shape out. Okay, and then I could cut the exact same shape out on the other side, or I could take this and I could lay it down, oops, like that. So I'm laying it on the inside, so I can use that as kind of a tracer. But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but maybe something close. Okay. And then that can get glued on like that. And so I'm going to put a little bit of glue here and a little bit of glue there. So I'm going to start off with just one side. It's a little bit easier to work with one side. Now I don't know how much glue to put on quite yet, because I don't know how far out I want to have the mouth stick, but probably not very far. So I'm going to kind of line it up with the bottom. Kind of make sure it's as flat as I want it. I tend not to have it stick out too far. Put a little bit of glue over here. And again, just kind of smear it out with my fingers. So if I turn it upside down, I can kind of look. I don't know if you can really see. It's a problem. It's kind of dark. I chose a dark color to use. But what that does, it allows me to look at the little kind of tiny rectangle made by, like, trying to hold it so you can see it. There we go. So I can look and see if that's going to be even. It doesn't have to be perfectly even. And then if I need to, I can put my hand inside and rub it down. So again, you can see it from the side, like, this is kind of like that bottom lip. So on a lot of my drawings and collages, I would have the big bottom lip that stuck out. So you can see it, like right here is the bottom lip. All right, so there's that. If I wanted to, I could put a lip on there. Maybe I'll do that later, depending on how much time I have left. So I have the body. Okay, and now I want to think about arms and legs. And there's different ways I could do that, but I'm going to do the same technique for both the arms and the legs. And then I can think about the eyes. So I could do eyes very similar to the way I do the collage eyes. But let's go ahead and talk about arms and legs. So with the arms and legs, what I'm going to do, I've already chosen two colors. I have two pieces. I have a darker green and a lighter green. And I like having the two different colors because this technique is really interesting, and it's a little bit more interesting if you have contrasting colors. So what I'm going to do, all right, I can see these are not even. I'm going to make strips, and I want them to be pretty much the same size. And I'm thinking maybe 3/4 of an inch. And they don't have to be perfect, but so 3/4 of an inch. I actually want to have a lot of them, so 3/4 of an inch. All right, and then do the same thing. I tend to line it up with the number 1, the 1 inch. Because sometimes the end of the ruler is a little bit banged up or whatever. So I'm just going to do that 3 times. Now you don't have to measure this. It works a little bit better if the strips are even. Okay. And by making 3 marks, then I can line up the ruler better. Now I don't mind the pencil lines one here because you're not very likely to see them. And I might need some more of these, but we'll just go with these 4 strips. Okay. All right. Now, if you had a big cutting mat and you wanted to be a little bit more even, you could take and cut it with a craft knife. Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use scissors, but the problem is I find that as I'm cutting, sometimes the paper slides. So you really want to make sure you're holding that paper pretty stiff. And then if you have a paper cutter, you can even do this on the paper cutter. And then, it just goes a lot quicker. So I'm going to do a technique that I call cat stairs. And the only reason I call them cat stairs is that thinking back to when I first started doing paper sculpture. So if you missed that part, I was talking about being assigned to teach paper sculpture whenever I was studying to be an art teacher. And the teacher had me get a book out. And in the book, had all these different paper sculpture techniques. This was one, and they called it cat stairs. And so I've just always called it that because that's how I learned it. Some people call it a paper spring. Some people call it Jacob's ladder. I mean, there's all kind of different names. I don't know if there's an official technical name for it. Okay. So, anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set these off to the side. So I'm going to take 2 of these and I'm going to make them perpendicular. Okay, so you could either do it like this or like that. Okay, so just a right angle. I'm going to put a little bit of glue. Spread that out a little bit. And I want to make sure that they are nice and perpendicular. So when I teach little kids, I say, make an L shape. Okay. So it doesn't really look like much yet, right? So body, this is going to be the legs. Actually, I'm going to make the legs first. Okay, so then I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold. So what I do is I take the bottom one, which is the dark green, and I fold it, but I want to fold it right here at the edge of the lighter green. And I'm just going to fold it straight across. Okay, I'm going to maybe try to put that right in the middle of the camera. Okay. So this dark green is just going to be folded up and down. This is going to be folded side to side, so I do the same thing. And I just want to make sure that it's nice and even, that it's folded perpendicular, so dark green, dark over light, light over green, light over dark, dark over light. And I just repeat this until I get to the very end. However, what I find is that this will not be long enough for legs, especially. So I will probably do this and extend it. So when I get to the end, I'm not going to glue it together. I'm actually going to glue more strips to it. I'll show you that in a minute. So when I do this, I keep it on the table, because what I find is that if you don't quite understand how this is working, and a lot of times little kids don't, and even some adults or high school kids would have a hard time, and they would do this, and if you pick it up, you can accidentally flip it around, and then what happens is you just end up making a big wad of paper, because you just kind of fold and wrap the paper around itself. And so what this is actually doing, it's making two interlocking pieces, and each piece is folded in what we call an accordion fold. And so they just interlock, and it kind of creates a little spring. So I just take my time, go all the way to the end. Okay, so I'm getting close to the end. Now, here's the thing. I don't want to glue this. Some people will be like, put glue on it. I'm going to extend it, so I'm going to glue strips to these. But if I show you, you can kind of see how it's a little spring now. Okay, but that's not long enough for legs. I want it to be a little bit longer. So what I'm going to do is just kind of open that up. I'm going to take two more strips, and so I'm going to glue a light green there and then a dark green on the other side. So I'm just extending the strips. Do the same thing to the dark green. Okay, and then I just take this, glue that down. So this is why I'm not too concerned if there are pencil marks on it, because when it's folded up like this, you're not going to really see them. So anyway, so I just continue now. And so I just go through the whole thing. So once you've figured out, once you got it going, I can go ahead and pick it up, and it's maybe a little bit quicker to pick it up now, because I can rotate it and fold it. So it's just light over dark, dark over light. So what this is going to do is going to create a spring that's twice as long as the one I just showed you, and it should be pretty good for the legs. Now there are all kind of other ways I could do legs. I could roll tubes of paper. I've done that before. I could just cut out a strip and do an accordion fold. I could just do plain strips. But I like this because it's a little bit more interesting. And using the two contrasting colors of paper, I think is a really interesting thing. Okay, now I do want to glue these, so that's a little bit longer now, what I want, but I do want to glue this together. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on here, and then fold that over. Then while I'm holding it, I can take my scissors and I can trim off that little bit of extra. And I got a little bit of extra over here. Okay. And so, pull it out a little bit. All right. And then that's going to get glued down here as a leg sticking out. Okay. Or that's a little bit long for the arms, but the arms will get glued sticking out of the side. Okay. So let's go ahead and glue this down. So what I find is I just kind of scrunch up this spring, hold it down. Okay. So there he's got one leg. I'll make the other one and stick it there. So just going to do the same thing, exact same way. All right. So I'm trying to keep it going straight across as I fold it, so it stays nice and even. So once you get the hang of it, it goes pretty quickly. And if you wanted really long legs, you could connect more. But what I do is I do the first strip first, so I fold them up and then I glue on the extra strips. So sometimes people want to glue like 3 or 4 strips together to make really long legs, and what they end up having is this really long strip that just flops around and is actually really hard to deal with. So I find if you can keep it short, so work with the shorter strips, when you get to the end like this, that's whenever you can glue it on. And it seems to work a little bit better. So now I'm at the end. Now is a good time to glue it together. Oops. And continue. So I think I'll take a break from these, and once I get this one done and glued on, and I'll come back and do the arms in a little bit. I'll go on to some of the details. But a lot of it's very similar to the way I do the collage monsters. So when I'm thinking about the eyes, I'm going to do them pretty much the same way. Think about the teeth. Is there going to be a tongue sticking out? Horns are a little bit different. So there are a couple different ways I could do that. I'll show you. So I just find that this is kind of like the most tedious, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but kind of the part that takes the most is if you do it this way. But like I said, there are different ways you can do the arms and the legs. All right, and then that's going to get glued on. Just kind of pinching it, squeezing it, holding it until it's going to stick. And then, there you go. Now he's got two legs sticking out. So he's going to be sitting down. Trying to make him stand up, going to be very, very difficult. So he's just kind of sitting down on the ground. All right. And then I'm going to kind of make some teeth in there. So I can grab some white paper. And maybe he's going to have some sharp teeth. Okay. Put a little bit of glue. Now, sometimes what I find, it's hard to like stick this in there. So if I have something like this spatula, that's actually going to help me. So I can kind of stick the tooth on there, stick it in, and then that spatula kind of helps me press it up and press it into place. So that spatula, that's what it's called. It's called a little plastic spatula. Is something that I got. It's usually meant for metal tooling. So you can buy metal, like basically heavy metal foil, and you can do different techniques with it. But it's a great little tool to have. Not just, I don't use it for metal tooling. I use it for stuff like this, or use it like a bone folder or a spreader for paint. So there, two little teeth, okay, and then, hey, what's a monster without a tongue? So let's go ahead and cut him a little tongue. Okay, so I want it to kind of stick out, so I'm going to fold a little tab. So I gotta be able to attach the tongue, so I'm going to attach it kind of right behind the lip, and so I just want to fold that just to make a little flap. And then before I do anything, I do want to draw. So I'm going to done this before, I'm going to grab my little pink pen here and put the line in. Maybe little dots for taste buds. Doing it now because it's just easier to do it now while it's flat. Okay. Now I could just have it stick straight out like that. Oops. like that, but I think it's always a little bit more interesting if it's curled. So you may have learned to use scissors and ribbon. So a lot of people will open the scissors. You don't need the scissors open. Actually, that's a little dangerous. That's a sharp blade. And if you're doing this with kids, what I do is just keep the scissors closed, put your thumb over, put the piece of paper between the thumb and the blade, and then you're just going to just pull down lightly. So you're literally pulling down. Now, that's kind of cool, but I'm going to do a curl coming back the opposite way. So I'm going to do a little curl at the end of his tongue. So that way it's got a little bit of an S curve in it. Okay, a little bit of glue on the tab. Again, you can always spread it out with your finger. That just helps it stick quicker. Rub my fingers together to get rid of the extra glue. And then I'm going to stick this on, but I'm going to use I'm going to stick the spatula kind of underneath so that I can press the tongue down and, and stick my fingers underneath. So my hand's kind of underneath the main part of the body. The spatula goes underneath the mouth, the bottom lip, and I can press that down. So maybe you can see that little spatula sticking out there. And then that can fold down. And now he's got a big tongue sticking out. Okay. So let's see, I could do feet. Let's see, do I want to do feet next? I think I do. So I'm just going to take a piece of yellow. I think you need some yellow feet. I want the feet to be the same. So the easiest way to do that is to fold a piece of paper. And then let me cut off this extra. So what I can do is I can cut out two feet. Now I want to cut the fold off. I don't want the fold to be there. So I'm not, I want to have 2 feet, not just one big foot. Okay. And then that can get glued on there. And that one can get glued on over there. Because these springs kind of twist when they come off, I'm going to position the feet with the legs kind of out, and then that way I can get them in the position I want. So if I were to flatten it all the way, they might, and position them accordingly, then I might not have them facing the way I want to, if that made sense. Because these twist in different directions and in different ways. So I'm just trying to get the feet, whenever they're out like this, to be about the same. Okay, so he's got feet now. He's got a tongue. He's got teeth. All right. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do the arms now just to get those out of the way. But I think you can start to see. So if you're thinking about eyes, you can start doing the eyes. You could, I want the eyes to pop out a little bit. I'm going to show you how I do that in a little bit. But let me go ahead and do a couple more cat stares for the arms. So I'm going to do them the same way I did the legs, but I'm not going to have them as long. So they're going to be the same width. So that 3/4. So I'm only going to need 2 strips. So like I said, this is easy enough to do if you have a paper cutter. Makes it real quick, easy to do. Okay. And then just like before, just want to make sure that I'm holding it so that the paper doesn't slide. Just trying to make sure that edge is even. I feel like the paper moved. Oh. Okay. And then just gonna do it the way I've done it. And so when I was doing this the first time, and I'd shown you after I'd done the one cat stairs how short that spring was. Well, that's gonna be perfect for the arms. So I have a feeling that this might go a little bit longer than my hour that I normally have, but probably not too much longer. And then also thinking about like, oh, I had a bit of a late start since we were having some internet issues, but it looks like the internet's been holding steady so far. So keep my fingers crossed. So I'm not going to glue other strips on here. I want it just to be this long. So I'll go ahead and just glue this together. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue this onto the body. I always like the arms to come out close to the mouth. Oop, didn't hold it long enough. Okay, so while that's drying, go ahead and do this second one. So what's really interesting is that I always consider myself more of a 2D artist, and I've always loved drawing and painting, but I also love sculpture, and especially paper sculpture. I don't know what it is. I think it's because I love that cut paper, just kind of going back to that, and then being able to turn it 3D, and then also just kind of thinking about how paper's a flat material, and to be able to make it 3D is really interesting. And then, you can't make like a round spherical object with paper. That's why I made the monster a rectangular prism. Now, you know, it's like I do sculptures, especially monster sculptures out of polymer clay and other types of clay. But that's real moldable. You know, you can mold it and shape it and do all kind of things with it. Whereas paper, you know, it's like it you can curl it, you can fold it. There's some, you know, there are different things you can do with it. But it's definitely very challenging. But I think it goes back to that love of cutting paper. So it mixes the 3D and kind of that collage aspect. But like I said, this is not, you know, this is not something. Yeah, you can take a paper sculpture, set it up on the shelf for a pretty long time, but it's not going to last forever. It's paper. It's gonna droop, and things might fall off, or it might get torn, or if you have cats like me, that, you know, the cats attack it. Okay. All right. So arm number 2. I'm going to make the hands very similar to how I made the feet. So I'm going to take this little piece of yellow and fold it. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Okay. Now with the hands, I'm going to do something. I want to have a tab, a little part on there that I can fold. And then it's going to come up. So I'm going to draw this out first just to make it a little bit easier. Okay, so this little tab part here looks like a wrist, but that's going to get folded. And that's going to allow me to glue it to the end of the arm. Again, I'm going to cut the fold off. And then I'm going to try to remember to put the pencil mark side to the back so you don't see it, but I am going to erase the pencil marks just in case I forget. Actually, let me go ahead and fold this now. So I'm going to fold it straight across at that, like that. So I have this little flap, this little tab, and that's going to allow me to glue it on. It looks like it's a good size too. So just going to glue it on. So that when I see it from the front, it sticks straight out. Okay. Same thing there. Alright, so he's got 2 hands and 2 legs. And now he needs some eyes. So I was talking about how can have them pop out. So I'm going to take, I have this little bit of extra blue, and this was from when I did the mouth, so I don't like anything going to waste. So I'm going to cut little strips that are about the same width. Because what I'm going to do is, that one's not quite the same width. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is to take and make little tiny cat stairs. So I'm not going to get too many folds. So this is going to make a tiny, tiny spring. And so if I glue that underneath the eyes, then it'll make the eyes pop out a little bit. And then just, fold it like a normal cat stair. So you can do the cat stairs with the same color. It just, I'm doing the dark blue because of the dark blue body. So I want it to blend in. And then let go so you can see how it's really teeny tiny. And I can put a little bit of glue on there. And then just fold this one up the same way. Okay. A little bit of glue. And then stick it. Okay, so that's going to be where his eyes are. Okay, they kind of look like eyes now, but I'm going to go ahead and do my kind of typical eyes. Find some scrap. So I'm thinking I want to use some of this turquoise paper. And actually, I think I'm going to use some of this light blue paper too. Okay. So just like I did for the collage, I'm going to do it very similar. So that would get glued like that. Or maybe that's the small one. I don't know. I think it let me see what a bigger one would look like. I like having one big eye, one small eye. Yeah, sure, why not? So just like I've done with the collage. Now this is a light blue. It's a little, like when it catches the light, it looks really white. Just a little bit more off. I think it keeps a little bit of this green. So like I said, this is just same techniques that I used for the collage monsters. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing with the little reflection. Okay. Nope. I got way too much glue on there. Yeah, cutting these little tiny reflective pieces are that's probably the hardest part. A little bit of glue. That's alright. Let's go ahead and glue the eyes on. Okay. So there's the little monster. I think I'm going to stop there. I didn't have the chance to put horns or hair on, but I could easily do that. I didn't put any spots on, and it's just because the sculpture takes a little bit longer than just like the collage. So maybe tomorrow, what I might do is do the body a little bit ahead of time, and then I can get into some of the other things, or maybe figure out a way to do legs and arms that don't take so long. But anyway, so kind of get an idea for him, and maybe I'll work on a little bit more later and add some more stuff. But yeah, so there's the little guy. But yeah, so anyway, he's just kind of funny sitting there. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. A little bit different. Been just working on the 2D stuff, so hopefully you enjoyed the 3D. And like I said, I didn't have a chance to put in all the details, but I'd probably put hair, horns, spots at least, and or maybe a tail, whatever. So you can make this as elaborate as you want, but just trying to do that all in 1 hour, I got pretty far with that. So anyway, well, I appreciate you joining in. I won't be live tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll have a chance to video it, and then you can watch it whenever you want to. But I will be live on Wednesday and Friday. Hopefully, the internet will keep cooperating. So, yeah. And if you have any questions, like I said, I know this was a little bit different than what I've done before. So, if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, feel free to pop them in the comments. And if you've been making something, I'd love to see it. I haven't seen too many, so I'd love to see what you're making. And if you're willing to share, you can put it in the comments as well, or you can tag me. Really appreciate it. So anyway, just let me know if you have any questions or you need anything. And like I said, I'll be back live on Wednesday, and hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to record. So thanks for tuning in again, and I really appreciate it. And as always, happy creating.